Hi, Phonetics. Welcome back to part two with Stephen Kunes. And give me a little hint. Ooh, he is executive producer and creator of Over My Dead Body, right? And that is on Amazon, right?
That's correct, on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. And oh my gosh, and also Steven, how many, I mean, all your iconic films that you've watched or your parents have watched. I mean, Cheers, South Park. I mean, we've got to get to how all these things. And you were a monologue writer for Johnny Carson. So, like, where should we start? Like, oh, you know what I want to start? You were giving me this beautiful quote by your friend because we were talking about some people get older and your friend, the comedian, can you give his name so maybe people will like listen to your comedian friend? What was his name?
Arthur Penn, he was the famous director of Bonnie and Clyde, a number of films. He said, I think it's the greatest, well, my favorite quote ever about the entertainment industry. He said, the one secret to making it in the film business is never give up. And he said, I have heard so many times where somebody quit and then like the next week, if they just waited like the next day or the next week or whatever, he said, you will be guaranteed to make it. You will be guaranteed to get somewhere if you don't quit. And he said, he says, it's a shame. He says, it can be very frustrating. A lot of people will quit and they always regret that. So
Oh, that's beautiful. And then your friend, that's the comedian, what's his name that started his career at 50
Sid,
years old, the stand up?
his name is Sid Davis, and he has his stuff is about his kid, taking the car and ends up in the lake, and as the tow truck is pulling his high school student's car, it's his car, out of the water, he can read the bumper sticker. It said, "My kid is an honor student at high school," whatever.
Ah,
And it's he brings a lifetime of material that you could never make up when you're. What do you talk about when you're in your 20s? You talk about dating, you know, your first trip on an airplane. But when you're 50 years old, then you gotta have a lot of stories to tell.
oh yeah.
And I would love to see a comedy special done only with people that started when they were 50. I would love to see a movie that is produced and cast, directed, the entire crew of people that wanted to do that, and this is their first time, and they're in their 50s. I think that would be, just wonderful.
Oh,
So
that'd be amazing. Yes. Oh, does independent short films count? Because talk about
that too,
hilarious adventures. Oh my gosh.
right? So that is, and that's really your audience. Most of America doesn't want to. The networks have always thought that only young people can write for a young audience, and only a young audience matters. And I think it's taken them half a century to figure that young people are broke. So they go like, well, they spend money. Well, they'll spend all their money, but they only have a little bit to spend.
They spend their parents'
So
money. They spend their older
yeah,
parents'
they do
money.
that. They're very good at doing that.
And nowadays they only watch 15-second videos anyway. So the 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, etc. are used to watching long format. So who do you want
Right.
to cater to now, huh? Uh-huh. Long format.
People are watching videos that are 1 minute on their smartphone.
That's not your
They'll do that all
audience.
day. They'll do that for, that's not the audience. But
So
anyway,
can we get to like you writing monologues for Johnny Carson? Can I tell you a little secret before you start? Okay, so
sure.
I'm from Louisiana and I don't really know anything about TV making and film. I literally never understood like how did they catch those people Lucy in her house? Are they spying on her? Like I didn't understand how they would catch them talking and how they catch them doing that every day. So but one of the things I remember doing as a little girl, I pretended I was Johnny Carson. And I remember looking out my window, overlooking a tree with the tire swing and the roosters running around and the alligator swamp lake, and I would pretend like I'm Johnny Carson interviewing people, and I also pretended like he was interviewing me, and I would just talk every day and go, "Oh, yes, I did this and this." I didn't even know what I was doing, and I realized that that childhood girl in me is now doing what I pretended when I was, like, in 1st or 2nd grade. I'm now doing it right now on
Wow.
the podcast. Isn't that crazy? And you worked for Johnny Carson, so I'm so excited to hear your story.
Well, yeah. What happened was, well, just to let you know about Carson, his favorite guests, and certainly his favorite comedians, were not necessarily really stars, although he had all the stars on the show. He wanted somebody that you would just want to sit down with and talk with anyway. Uh, and he felt that, for instance, he liked Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal, what he did as a kid, when you mentioned you pretending to interview when you were a kid, that reminded me of Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal, when they would have the family come over to his house, everybody would put their coats and their purses on the bed in their parents' bedroom. He would go into the bedroom and he would put on, let's say, his aunt's coat and grab the aunt's purse. He would come out and he would imitate the aunt in the living room in front of all the guests. Then he would go back and he would put on like his uncle's jacket or whoever he would wear that and come out and he would do these imitations of his relatives and he said that was his first thing.
I
Carson
Oh, that's brilliant.
particularly loved that story. He likes stories of a guy that's just just working in a butcher shop, became a comedian. Because everybody said, "Yeah, you're funny. You should try this out." Rodney Dangerfield used to sell aluminum siding in New Jersey, and paint. He had a little store, and he auditioned on the. He always would say, "Nobody gives me any respect." He goes, "Because all I do is sell aluminum siding. I'm like a nobody." And he went and he auditioned for the Ed Sullivan Show with like 3,000 other people. Got on and made his entire career out of getting no respect. And that,
Oh, I
you know,
love that. I mean, like, it's yeah,
writing,
wanna
yeah,
cry, yeah,
yeah. I
and
sent I sent material, or I had my agent send it over, and he said, if you write for Johnny Carson, he goes, people, that's not as prestigious as writing movies. It's not as prestigious as some of these shows you've been working on. He goes, they'll just think you're a joke writer, and that was this is back in the '80s. This is considered like, it's nothing that. And now people, like, that's the first thing they ask me about. Like, they don't care about anything. I think what was that like? That must have been so. It was the best thing I ever did. You get up in the morning, you watch the news, you read the papers. I kind of became Dustin Hoffman because I ended up buying all these papers.
paper.
Now I can understand why he did it. I'm looking for like crazy stories about like a guy who's getting a divorce, and he's mad. They're going to divide everything, so he chainsaws the house in half. Like, that was perfect for Johnny Carson, right? So
Saws the house in half.
that
Oh my gosh, I think they used
here's
that
here
for a
here's
movie,
your
right?
half of the house,
Oh my god, The War of the Roses, right?
right? So the exciting thing was that you would write jokes, deliver them by about 11 o'clock. He would come. He would drive in. He would get in around 1. The show would be done at 5:30, um, from 5:30 to 6:30, and it would air at 11:30. Well, so 5:30 would be like 8:30 Eastern time, but it was done in Burbank when I worked there. And you would have no idea which jokes he would choose because there were 8 of us. You send your jokes in. He would read them. He would check off the ones that he wanted to use. He would order them, and at the time, he didn't use a teleprompter. They just put it on cards, like spread across the floor, not or against the board. And I would literally turn on the television, and I would know for the first time which one of my jokes would be used. And if the joke bombed, he wouldn't blame you because he's the one that chose them. Like, he
Oh,
thought they were funny. So
oh,
that was good.
oh, that's so nice. Any good
And
memories?
but
Any funny stories?
we a lot. Well, many. A lot of people said that he was cold and distant and not rude, but he just didn't communicate with people. And it's true, he was the most himself when he was on the show. But with the writers, that was a different story because he knew that like we're the ones like that put the words in his mouth, and so he was very nice to us, and we did. I think my favorite joke that I wrote with Lorena Bobbitt. Do you remember her?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. I think everyone
Okay,
remembers the Bobbit lady.
Jean Bob, the Bobbitt lady. Well, she went on trial, and the joke was, Lorena Bobbitt went on trial today, and the bailiff said, "Mrs. Bobbitt, please raise your right hand and keep the other one where I can see it." That's what it was. So,
Keep that other hand where I can see it. Oh my gosh,
all
I love
right.
it.
So
Yeah.
that he liked that. But when he retired, and we were both living in Malibu, I was living, I don't know, about 4 streets down, and we watched the entire O.J. Simpson trial together. It was 13 months. We would go to his house. It would be like a few of us, and he was obsessed with that trial. And on the very first day, even before Johnny Cochran got involved, Robert Shapiro and Marcia Clark were arguing over something, and he was studying the way Robert Shapiro would look at the prosecutor. And I said, Marcia, I just read Marcia Clark has done 23 murder trials, and she's won every single one. She's 23-0. And
Wow.
he watched it, and he looked at me. He said, "Now she's going to be 23-1." I go, "Really?" He was very. This was like maybe the second day of this thing, and he had a real fascination for that. But he also said something else. He's even though OJ was got away with it, he was acquitted. He said she has done something, a great service for people. She has what he used the word anesthetized, but she people no longer think that celebrities can do no wrong. That in the future you're going to see people get convicted of things that maybe that they wouldn't have otherwise, because she showed that just because you're famous and well liked doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing some terrible thing just like anybody else. And anyway, that was he was also into astronomy. He was fascinated. He had a telescope collection, and he played the drums.
Playing
And
the
he
drums.
was friends with Buddy Rich, and Buddy Rich would it passed away before that, but they used to stop by his house and give him drum lessons. He also got tennis lessons when he sold his house. Before the house that he ended up his final home, he had a house on Corbin Beach, and he sold it to John McEnroe. And he said to John McEnroe, "I will only sell this to you if part of the deal." They wrote it into the deal is you have to give me 3 tennis lessons. So
He got tennis lessons from
so
John
he got
McEnroe.
three John. Yeah. If
Oh,
you're looking for trivia, there's a piece right there.
oh, I love that. Can we talk like which show was first, like Cheers or do you want what show do you want to talk about? Cheers, South Park. You got so many. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Cheers. Well, Cheers was a lot of. I only did 4 episodes of that. The Love Boat was actually as silly as it sounds. They said we want to do. It was the 9th season, and it was the 200th episode. And I got a call from my agent, and he said, "We're looking for a story because it's the 200th episode. Aaron Spelling wants to have an all-star cast, so we got to come up with a plot that involves a lot of people." So I had an idea. He probably told this to 1,000 writers, but you don't think about that at the time. And I went in there and I said, "What about a guy years ago? He hid something of value on the ship, and the word gets out. There's a treasure. It's called hidden treasure."
Oh,
And
pirate
so everybody,
treasure.
so what they do is they rip the whole ship apart looking for like whatever it is. And so the stars were Andy Griffith and Cloris Leachman. Andy Warhol was in it. Um,
Wow.
a Ron Howard. It was like, according to, I don't know how this happened, but according to the TV Guide, if you remember them, they rated this episode as the 92nd, it was 82nd or not 82nd top of the top 100 episodes in TV history. I
Oh
think
my
Aaron must have paid him to do that. Was
oh
I don't.
my
Was,
goodness.
but that so that was a lot of fun working on that to see. So Betty White, I like name anybody. They were in this one episode, and now I sit sometimes with my mom and dad, and they're looking at Matlock. They'll watch like Andy Griffith. Like I wrote for Andy Griffith. I wrote for Cloris Leachman. Like whatever. So that was a fun experience. Um, Cheers, of course, was always great. But I have to say, of the things I've done, the working with Carson, and then during that employment, we used to keep a fantasy wish list. Like, who would you like to have on the show, even if they would never come on? Oh, I don't know. Let's get Princess Diana. Oh yeah, she'll come on. How about Queen Elizabeth? Like Greta Garbo, she'll come out of hiding, and that gave me the idea now for the show that I'm doing now, Over My Dead Bodies. Well, I would love to interview Humphrey Bogart. I would love to interview Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart and Jackie Gleason and Jack Benny and Mae West. And so how am I going to do this? And I thought, well, just do it. Just don't mention they're dead. So when you say Over My Dead Body, people think it's about heaven and hell and ghosts and goblins. And we never mention they're dead. I just get voiceover actors, the best that we can find from all over the world. And we say, we talk about their life in the first, 8 minutes. We talk about them. We talk about what are they working on now, and what do they think of what's going on in the world today. And we have callers will call in with questions. So we just did Julia Child share some recipes. We did Robert Kardashian. We did Richard Nixon, Tupac Shakur.
Oh my
Phyllis
gosh.
we just did Phyllis Diller. That's really funny.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to do next week, if I ever finish the script, Mark Twain.
Oh
And then
wow.
we're going to do Mark Twain, Jimmy Stewart, Howard Cosell on sports. We try to hit all the
Oh
different
my
areas.
goodness
Then
gracious.
Robert Kardashian was our pilot. We did Nostradamus with more predictions,
Oh.
and it is very funny. And the idea really came from the fantasy wish list that we kept on the Tonight Show of all the people we could never get, whether they were dead or whether they just would never come on the show. Some people wouldn't come on the show, and
Now you can't get all of them. You just got to find the voiceover, right?
yeah, it's not so easy. People to find somebody, someone like Mark Twain, anybody with a Southern accent could do that. But if you're looking for Rodney Dangerfield, a lot of people do an imitation, but it doesn't. It sounds like some guy doing an imitation. We found a perfect one, and I said, "Well, once we find that, then we'll do it." And so here's the other thing, which I think ties in with this show perfectly, is I just assumed when I started this show 3 years ago, and we got to deal with Amazon, that everybody knew who the guests were. And we got nominated for an award for our Mae West episode, and they ran a clip in front of this big audience, and there was this guy behind me who was probably in his 30s. He said, "This is really funny. I just love this show, even though I have no idea who any of these people are that are in it." And they're like, "What? Like, you don't know? How do you not know Mae West or Lauren Bacall? How everybody
Humphrey
that you featured on
Bogart, Jimmy
Bogart,
Stewart.
they don't know." And so I started incorporating a brief history of who the people were in each episode, because I so now it's really taking on some type of a historical significance rather than just being funny. The main thing is, though, when you're dead, you can say anything. You don't have to worry about getting fired, losing a job, um, that's that sort of thing. So that's what we have no shortage of guests. We were going to do Toto. Where
No
you could
shortage
do.
at all.
We have no shortage of guests. It's a talk show format, and what happened was because of the because of the pandemic, we had we were shooting using a studio in New York. We were using one across from Universal in North Hollywood and one in Philly, and the one in New York and LA closed permanently. So we had to shoot. Now we're shooting until we go back there again. We're shooting at the Comcast Center in Philadelphia. So I have to bring like hosts. We got a guy from Law and Order from New York Special Victims Unit to host one, our Nixon episode. But because of modern technology, as you know, people are doing things right from their homes. And so these voiceover actors, they all have little home studios and they read the lines of the script and deliver them. Like I've met very few of them in person. We have a guy, Frank Gerard, another case of a guy, I think he was a financial planner, but his dream was to be a voiceover actor and he retired. And he's probably the best of all of them. That he does all kinds of commercials and stuff. But his imitation, he did our Nixon. People said, what did you do? Take an old Richard Nixon, like tapes from the news and somehow splice them together? I said, no, this is a guy. He said, you wouldn't know the difference.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
there's so many people out there that have so much talent. And I'm just glad that because of all the cable channels, all the streaming, and now the internet, and now the podcast market, it's an opportunity for people that weren't lucky enough to get a call from Norman Lear. It's like Norman Lear was very generous, but he can't hire everybody. There's only 22 episodes of a show a year. There's like 7 writers, and they divide up the scripts, and there's not a lot of work. And in the old days before Fox, there was just 3 networks.
Yep.
3 hours of prime time a night. That's only 21 hours a week. And you do the math. It's amazing that anybody ever got a job.
Yep.
But now you can do like this wonderful show of yours. This is like, you talk about what my children or grandchildren will see. Well, the same for you. I mean, this, you're keeping this history alive and talking to people, trying to get those anecdotes, which you're very good at getting.
Yeah.
I think I've told more to you than like anybody in my life.
I know.
In one short amount of time.
Thank you. The Dustin Hoffman, the Norman Lear. I did write to Oliver Stone, and I remember I wrote to so many people as a young actor that I had a dent because I was writing in pencil, little postcards. I had an indentation on my right index finger from writing like so many postcards. But I got my call from Oliver Stone's office, and he sent me to casting. So it took me maybe 1,000 postcards because I had that indentation on the finger.
That's nice.
Yeah, and so I wanna, we still have so much more to talk about because we're gonna have to talk a little bit about South Park because I actually went to their house, South Park, and those guys are fun. They have pinball machines and just had a really good
Right.
time. I had the opportunity to go there to a party, and it was just they were so nice and kind, and but good for them. Like, didn't it do a little?
I've had people tell me things that I wanted to do on my show, and they go, "Oh, you can't put that on." I go, "Did you ever watch South Park?" Like, man, I don't even know if I could say on this podcast the things they do on South Park. Do you remember the George Lucas episode where the young writer said that he and Spielberg stole his script? That's like my favorite. There's not even a way to describe that unless you saw it.
Did you have fun writing there? Because you like obviously like you could just be very expressive there. Shall we say, right?
Right. I'm actually surprised that stuff, even to now. I mean, that stuff got through. But the South Park actually is written. There are so many people that like are involved in it that you don't remember everything that you wrote. You know, more so like typically on a show, the staff and the producers will decide. They'll pick an arena. Like, what do we want to do? What kind of a story do we want to do? What haven't we done before? Which is like they've done everything, and the staff will sit down and they'll break it down into a story, you know, kind of, and then one writer will go out and write a draft of it, and then it will come back to the other writers, and they will all sit around and say, ah, that's like, what about this line? What about the? By the time that the script is done, it doesn't really resemble much of that first draft that the right, but it'll still say written by that first writer.
Oh,
That's just the way it works. And but a lot of times you'll hear like somebody say, "Oh, gee, I had help." They're all really team written. And South Park, I think, more than any, is team written. You could really just make up a fictional name and say all the episodes are written by, like, you know, John Smith, because I don't know. Let's say L.A. Law used to be the same way too. Uh, you really couldn't, you know, the people got along, or they were on the same wavelength. So you can't. Like my friend Mark Andrus that did As Good as It Gets. I said, well, what did you write and what did Jim Brooks write? He said, I swear to God, I can't remember. He said, we wrote this thing like 30 times. I don't even, you know,
writing is
I don't even
rewriting.
remember.
Oh my gosh.
Writing is rewriting. That's exactly right.
Now do you
That's, you know,
now do you do any voices like on your show or over my
no,
dead body?
occasionally I will call in for lack of like not having anybody else. I'll be one of the callers, like with a question, like Steve Jobs. Don't you feel guilty that you pay kids 10 cents an hour, or that kind of thing? And in the pilot, I did the voice of Robert Kardashian because nobody knows what he sounds like, and we just started it, and I did it as fun until we could find an actor, and they go, "Oh, this is just fine." So that's my claim to fame.
I
So
think I got a voiceover actor for you because he's his name is Joel Gibbs. He can do like Paul McCartney and a bunch of voice. He was supposed to come on and then he had an emergency, but he was going to pretend to be like Paul McCartney. That I was interviewing Paul McCartney. Go, hey, Paul McCartney, welcome to the show. And like, oh wait, that's not Paul, it's Joel. So I might.
wow,
So
that
and
would
then
be nice. Paul McCartney's not dead though, so I
well,
don't know
no,
if he
no, oh,
might
no, but no, no,
qualify.
he's
But
not. No, but my part, I am interviewing so far live people. But
right,
he
well,
could
that's
play
good.
the
What
voice
do
of
you do?
someone maybe that in
Yeah.
his repertoire
What
of 30
yeah.
voices. So, I mean, your show is so amazing. What time at night do we know? Like, what time at night it's on Amazon running? Or actually, you can just watch
No,
it
it's streaming. It's
streaming
streaming. You can
anytime.
watch it anytime.
Oh my god! I mean, like, can you tell us a little bit how, like, you pitched that, or like, you went to Amazon? Hey, I've got this show. Everyone's gonna be dead, but it's gonna be really cool.
Well, I always say these people are funnier dead than alive. In fact, we're going to do a movie out of it as well. But how did I pitch it? I'll tell you how I pitched it. We put up a website. We put the idea of the show on the website and who we would interview and that kind of thing. And then we went out, shot a 10-minute demo against a green screen. Oh, here's our secret. We don't actually go to cemeteries around the world. We do it. And it looks so real, though. People go, wow, okay, don't you get arrested for shooting in a cemetery? Yeah, it really is. And so we sent the demo. And then that's how we got the deal to do the pilot. And then from that, they go, oh, my God, can you do 6 more? And now, we're going to do like 60 so far, and then go from there.
So over 29 million viewers,
Right.
29 million people enjoying Over My Dead Body on Amazon, created and executive produced by Stephen Kunes. Yes.
And I really enjoy doing this. This is really, I find that I love researching the people. I always find stuff that I didn't know about them. So
Well, we're so happy to have you on the show, Stephen Kunes. Everyone watch Over My Dead Body. Just want to thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for our listeners. Give us 5 stars and give us a nice review. And thank you so much.